Hello, hello. This is a week after KubeCon, March 26, 2024, and it's SIG Node weekly meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have three items on agenda, and first item is from Tim. Tim, take it away.
Yeah, so this is kind of just a cleanup task. Kubelet still supports run once mode, which when started in run once mode, it starts up all pods in from the sources. I think it just supports static pods, and then basically waits for all the pods to complete and then exits. And kind of looking at how it's implemented, I noticed there's a lot of newer newer as in like the last 4 or 5 years, pod lifecycle features that it doesn't support. Init containers, it'll start the init containers, but then it'll enter back off because the other containers aren't started, and it expects everything to be running. I'm sure sidecar containers aren't working properly. There's an old issue about volumes not being supported properly in run once mode that just got auto closed by the issue auto closer. And there was an issue raised in, I think, 2017 about deprecating run once. I think a couple people chimed in that they were using it, and that discussion didn't really go anywhere. I think now we have more evidence that it's not really working as intended. It's has zero test coverage is the other thing, and we also have a viable replacement now in Podman. So I propose that we just mark this as deprecated. Recommend users, if anyone's using it, to check out Podman, and then in a couple releases remove it. It's not a huge cleanup because the code is actually pretty well contained, but we can remove some plumbing, and also it's just kind of in its current state, a sort of broken feature, and I don't think we really want to spend time supporting it going forward. So just wanted to raise that here and see if anyone has any objections or thoughts on that.
Main question was, how come you can't do this with Docker? Like what is the Podman feature that actually allows the run once?
Well, specifically, Podman has Podman Kube Play, which lets you run a directory of Kubernetes pod manifests. So similarly, you could take your static pod directory that you were using as the source for the run once mode, and just point Podman at that.
Okay. And then I was curious, how is this related to because the run once, I guess kubelet runs once, and then there's the standalone mode also. Do we know if is standalone also another one that is something we want to consider? Because they seem kind of go hand in hand to me almost. Like these are both kind of ways of running kubelet outside of.
Yeah, I think standalone mode is a pretty different use case, because that's actually running the regular pod lifecycle. It's just doesn't have a connected API server. I know we use that pretty heavily on GKE, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other Kubernetes distributions are also using standalone mode to run the control plane.
Gordon.
Maybe I can answer something. Can people hear me?
Yes, Dan, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just like what Tim said, the Kubernetes run once actually is the before entire of the Kubernetes founded, announced. We have this one we call the previous pod concept. We have the container manifest. This is kind of like to continue that one to run single pod. So the difference from that, this one, it is from the Docker, it's just because we want the people accepted the pod concept instead the single container concept. That's the difference. And the Kubernetes standalone node is a little bit different. A while back, before we have the whole entire of the Kubernetes cluster, so we do want to have the single node, right? So the Kubernetes standalone node can be like the single node, not cluster, but you can run multiple pods in a single node. So we even thinking about evolve that one to become to single node cluster back then. So a lot of things is changed, like what the team said, that's different, but we can visit them one by one. I don't see any problem for today, deprecate and remove Kubernetes run once at least. Standalone Kubernetes actually might have some other use cases we need to be a little bit more careful. But we can revisit that one after this one.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Okay, I think my hand was next. Tim, if we run Kubernetes standalone mode and have like external process watching for pods to be completed, will it be the same as run once, or it will be different?
Actually, this is related to another issue that we saw recently. I'm having trouble remembering exactly where I saw that. But the kubelet doesn't really handle static pods that aren't restart always correctly. I think we saw this with someone was running a static pod that was restart on failure, and I think there's an upstream issue for it I can dig up. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think a race condition on how the kubelet tracked that when it was restarted. And so there's kind of a discussion about whether we should stop supporting anything other than restart always for static pods.
Okay, got it. I think I remember it, but I think the issue was about kubelet restart, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, yeah, I have no objections deleting them. I was just thinking if standalone mode can replace it easily, then it should be even less of an issue, but I don't have a problem with removing run once. So the only question, do we follow the typical deprecation policy that we have, announcing in this release, and then 2 more releases down the road we remove it? Or we can do it faster at this time?
I don't think there's any reason to do it faster. It's not blocking anything. It's not a huge mess as it is. So yeah, I was proposing mark it as deprecated in 131, and then slated for removal in 133. We could add a feature gate that we disable at some point to kind of force users to see the deprecate or the removal message with an escape hatch. And then I think the remaining question I had is, do we need a KEP for this?
I prefer still have cap.
Okay.
Because they get people another channel to raise awareness.
Mhm.
The awareness is the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cap process actually help to raise the awareness. That's all.
Okay.
Can make
That's
that cap very simple. And then what's our plan to deprecate? How long, right? So like what do you say, like the feature gate, and make sure people cannot access that functionality, and then which version we are clear remove the code and retell the code. So just in that simple cap, the people will pay more attention on that one.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
So if we need the caps, then it will be 131, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're already in code freeze for 130. So
No, I just thought
We'll
that
do this.
deprecation, if it's just an announcement, we can do it now, but if we need the cap to do announcement, then it's different. I want to hijack the agenda a little bit since we're talking about deprecations. We've been discussing a lot about C group v2 and C group v1 deprecation. And we wanted to announce it this release that we started like timer for C group v1 removal. but we didn't. And I think we need a cap for that as well. So maybe it's going to next release then. For now, do you have any objections?
No, I think, yeah, that makes sense, and we document it so people can refer to why we are doing it. I'll see if we can find an owner, maybe Harshal. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we already have 2 caps for 131. Great. Kevin, you're going next.
Yeah, thank you. Can I get permission to share? It'll just be easier. Sorry, could someone give me? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. So basically, I was just want to bring awareness to an issue. I've been looking into our eviction tests. Sorry, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Sorry, my volume wasn't going up. So generally, the repo for this is really simple. Forgive there's more changes in this PR, but you can reproduce this by actually saying, like in the end-to-end node tests, you can just say that we should probably report a process greater than 1 or greater than 0 for any kind of container. That's all this test is. And if you don't have any changes in the CRI stats provider, the end-to-end test for container RD will fail because it's getting 0 process count. And then for the cAdvisor stats provider, we're always returning 0 for this. So Cryo stats provider, I think it works because it actually is using the CRI stats at the pod level it's reporting the processes via the CRI stats and then kind of summing those up together. And so that's why that one works. But if you use, unfortunately for cAdvisor stats provider, we are getting the process stats from cAdvisor, and they're always returning 0 for I think what this is doing is actually looking at the pod level, and that's returning 0 for what this is. And I have a fix. Well, I don't know if it's a fix, but I want to bring awareness. I was looking at the cAdvisor code, and what I noticed is that the way this code works is it's using proc to get kind of all the processes, and then it computes. Sorry, that's not that helpful. What it was doing was computing the length of the PIDs, but what I was noticing is for the C group around pods, this is always returning 0. And so what I noticed was PIDs.current actually reports the number of PIDs that you have. And that way, once I added this change in, I was able to at least get both cryo and container RD and end tests to pass. But this is there is some issues are this is actually using procs for the FD count and socket count. I don't know if those are valid. I don't even know if we actually use those in Kubelet. But I was hoping to maybe get some cAdvisor people to weigh in on this. This has been a problem in Kubelet for a while. I think this David Porter brought up this issue maybe early last year. I of course don't have it linked there. Great. Forgive me, I don't remember where that one is, but let's see. I think I linked it somewhere else. Nope. Okay. Basically, it has been a problem since here we go. Since January 2023, process stats was returning 0 in kubelet summary. We had a fix in container and cryo container RD via the CRA stats provider, but there was no fix in it for cAdvisor. And so, yeah, it's been a long-standing issue, so I don't think the priority is, it's in all the supported releases of Kubernetes now. But I just want to bring it up. appreciate some reviews on the C advisor and whether or not this is a relevant patch or a useful patch. So does anyone have any questions?
I can take a look at the patch for sure. And we can also poke David.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the main issue is whether, like, I think it is working in C advisor in the sense that we are correctly reporting the process stats at the container level, but I think what we're calling in Kubelet is we're trying to get them at the pod level, and those are returning 0. So I don't know like what impacts this has to non-Kubelet users.
I bet this is actually to do, I can see why that would happen in cryo and not containerd because we've dropped the infra container in cryo. And so there isn't a PID associated with the pod in a way that there is in containerd. So I do like this C group level fix, and looking at the other two fields in the process stats, they don't look like ones that the kubelet is reporting, though I'd have to dig into a little bit deeper, but it isn't surprising that we're not reporting the information on the pod level for the process stats because there isn't actually a process that's like responsible for the pod.
So the field is supposed to report all the descendant C groups, but there might be, like as Peter pointed out, conditions during which we don't have anything under the pod since we don't have the infra container. So during some times it could be 0, and when the container comes up, it should then start summing up all the processes within the containers.
Well, I think the key distinction there is that like it looked like Kevin, you were mentioned that it was reading proc to get that information on the pod level, right?
Yeah.
Well, there isn't a proc entry for the pod level in cryo because there isn't a process that's like responsible for the pod. Like the way that C advisor chooses it, like, you know, finds the infra container PID and then it's like, this is the pod. And then it like reads the information for that, especially for network stats. But so I like the solution of going to the C group to get this information because though we should double check that it reports the same amount of processes because the PID namespace is not necessarily the same across this pod. Like you can have a private PID namespace where each container is its own PID. And in that case, the processes that are reported at pod level might be different. Like, so looking at the process count on the C group level of the pod, if you're looking at it actually the pod C group rather than the infra container C group, then it should aggregate all of the processes for all the descendant C groups. Whereas for if you're reading it from the proc entry for the infra container, it would have just the processes of the infra container, which is just the pause binary. So we should double check that we're not over reporting the processes on the pod level if we switch to the C group change.
Yeah, if we do that, then we'll have to subtract the count from each container level count to get the number.
The other thing is if we're correctly reporting the processes on the other containers and just like the pod level is broken, it's actually possible that this is expected, which would be like, I would feel apologetic for Kevin for digging into this so deeply, but because there isn't a process on the pod level in cryo because we don't have a PID like infra container, right? So assuming that,
sorry, go on.
Just assuming that in the case where the value that's reported at for the process stats of the pod is like the process is within the infra container, then 0 is the correct value. If it's the number of processes in the pod generally, then it should be an aggregate of all of the different containers, and reading the proc entry of the infra container actually wouldn't even work for that. So assuming the former case, it actually might be expected that that value is 0. Now that I'm thinking about it deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only issue if what you're saying is that, I mean, there's no. Basically, when I was looking at this, I was thinking maybe we could, in the CAdvisor stats provider, we could loop over all the containers and compute the processes at the container level. But our stats API does not have that at the container level. It's only at the pod level. So I guess like it was sort of, I wasn't sure what API to use. That's why I tried to fix it at the pod level.
So the current value, the pod level, it's reading the proc entry of the PID of the infra container and saying these are the processes in the pod totally. Is that what it's doing right now?
I think so, yeah.
So that actually wouldn't be correct in some cases, because like in the private PID namespace case, like the infra container wouldn't know about the processes in the other containers. So it would only be reporting on a single container granularity. I think I need to dig into this code a little bit deeper and kind of review of what exactly it's doing and what we're expecting it to do. The behavior from what you're describing right now kind of doesn't sound quite right. And I haven't looked at it with that perspective yet.
Yeah, I think let's look at it closer, and then maybe if needed, we can summarize in next week's call.
All right, I'll follow up with you, Peter. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for raising it, Kevin. All right. We want to move on to the next topic, maybe. Don, KubeCon recap.
Thanks. Actually, the Manu and the Sergey nominated me to do this recap. So this is this is from top of my head. So we have the one day, it is the Compute Summit. So there's the several hot topic and talk about and include about of the one from the John and conference talk about the dynamic resource allocator. And we also have the then after that, then there's several days of the KubeCon regular meetings. I basically think about this meeting, this conference is more like AI-centric, AI workload-centric conference meeting. But on the other hand, we have a lot of users. They are not necessarily the AI workload developer or this. It is still have like the most impressive, because I think this is my first time attend of the KubeCon last since 6 years ago, and it's really impressive.
Oh, wow.
I was feel proud actually, because many users looks like everybody, every company started to either already move to the Kubernetes and started using Kubernetes, or they are in the process. So actually, you spiritually actually give me a lot of encouragement, honestly. So make me think about, okay, we should come back to solve more serious problems, support other workload better, which is a line we've been discussed, I think, since last year here in SIG Node, among our community, right? Also like beyond SIG Node, the Kubernetes community. So I think there's a couple of things we also at the SIG Node a deep dive meeting, we try to announce a couple of things. One of the things it is we are shift to SIG Node focus from the infrastructure centric and the node centric to the workload centric, and to partner with more other SIG groups and include of the batch and scheduling, auto scaling, and all those kind of things. And so basically it is more like from the user perspective. We're doing this kind of things in the past, but maybe the whole user environment, product environment is not ready. So we think about this time is more ready also. So that's why we have announced that at the SIG Node, the community deep dive or something like that. And we also promise the community we will invest on more resource management to handle stateful side and HPC workloads. We also did that, I think 7 years ago, or maybe 9 years ago, we have the Jeremy start like a resource management work group, and resume. That effort is being paused and resumed a couple times. Now we seriously think about we need to put more, invest more, and you can see that even like since last year, more and more of the demanding of the swap, huge page, and also NUMA typology, all those kind of things is kind of like we have the more proactively discuss at the SIG Node. So we are going to seriously invest more on those kind of things. One of the another thing, it is basically just what I mentioned, that the dynamic resource allocator, Patrick and Kevin give several talk, even keynote, and then have the demo. And so more is from the model, how we are going to support of the GPU, TPU, and John actually expanded that topic. And then we have the end conference talk about even beyond node, even beyond of the model, how we are going to connect rest of the world. So maybe I hand off to the Patrick, and if Kevin is not here, Patrick, and also John to talk about the dynamic resource allocator. Yeah.
Sure. Patrick, if you're there, you want to jump in, or I can. I don't know if Patrick is here.
Doesn't seem to be on.
Okay. Yeah. So like Don said, like it was kind of like huge focus on AI from the presenters and the sort of participating vendors and things. Now, I think when they asked to raise hands about who's that, like in the huge, like 12,000 people there, it was huge. You know, it was not like everybody, right? So I don't think, like from a practitioner point of view and from our project customers, for lack of a better term, point of view, like our bread and butter is still our traditional workloads, but like it's pretty clear, you know, this is a huge, huge part of what we'll be doing going forward. DRA was Patrick and Kevin, like Don said, had a keynote. We talked about it. There's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around better support for accelerators. And so we did an unconference, the contributor summit. For those of us here in this meeting, that's probably the most interesting part. I know a lot of you were there. I thought we had a pretty good discussion on the revisiting the hardware model. I linked it into the document there. The idea here, right, is to rework our model to be a little more workload focused instead of infrastructure focused, and also to better address a bunch of these new use cases. So we have accelerators, splitting up individual accelerators, like sort of in a arbitrary way, like we do with CPU and memory, but also like as opposed to integer increments of whole accelerators, being able to subdivide them, which means extending basically the device plugin model from integers to allow devices to optionally publish additional resources like CPU or cores and RAM that are associated with that particular type of device, and also starting to take into consideration some topology considerations, some topology there. Another really interesting use case that came up that I found interesting is there's a lot of new technology out there around disaggregated devices. So devices that basically sit in their own box. That's just a big old box of devices hooked to a PCI switch, and then you can at runtime attach those to individual nodes. I don't think we handle that that well right now. DRA can handle it in the existing opaque models, but I think that from like a scheduling standpoint and a auto scaling standpoint, like we don't have a good understanding about all of that. So the other big thing that came up was that these GPUs they fail a lot. And so the failure handling and the fault tolerance around that and sort of rescheduling or whatever we have to do to handle those kind of fault tolerant situations is a big topic of interest. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any specific things I wanted to say other than that. Lots of enthusiasm around this idea of better teaching Kubernetes to understand specialized devices better is the way I like to think about it. It's a little bit beyond just GPUs, right? Like let's not just do it piecemeal. Let's try to at least have a framework that we're working from.
Yeah.
And so Alexandra is here. Do you want to add something?
I think you covered that quite well. So yes, indeed, a lot of good discussions about all of those topics. Like yes, DRA, of course, like had a primary, like the front row in the discussion. But yes, we need to continue the things about also traditional things like CPU and memory.
So John, I saw your document in the slides, right? It tries to cover more than what the DRA does. So I'm curious, like, are we thinking that we'll be able to get to a beta of DRA by the end of the year, or we also have to solve everything
That's a
with
great
a fresh
question.
start that you are proposing?
So, well, what I don't want to necessarily have a, well, okay, so I think that these things, it's not actually that, like, I'm taking the big picture view for the long term, but like steps along the way, DRA in 130 is already a step along the path. It's kind of
Right.
like, right, we're tacking along, trying to go upwind, but like what we're looking at for 131, and I think Patrick and Kevin and I at least are all roughly in agreement on this. We'll see if what everybody else thinks. You'll see it in my deck and also in Patrick's deck. Very similar statement about like what's going to go beta and what we want to get something beta in 132. So 131, that means reformulating a little bit of what's in DRA to be a little more directly on the path that I'm proposing, at least in my opinion. That's what it means. We'll see what other people think, but it's not trying to. It's really not trying to like from a user point of view, it all has to be a continuous extension of existing functionality. So I think that the way, I personally think that some of the UX with how we're doing DRA, both in 120, starting 126 and all the way through 130, I think we can improve some of the UX on that. But it's all along these lines, I guess.
Okay.
So yes, we absolutely need to have something in beta by the end of the year. It's going to be a subset like topology. I don't expect to address. I think it's probably too hard, although, like some people at the conference were like, no, we need that in there because we need, for example, if you talk about these disaggregated devices, right, there's only certain nodes they can attach to. And like that's essentially a form of internode topology. So there's a lot to consider. So as part of that, I hate to do it, but I think we're going to need a new working group. So there's 2 new working groups that are going to be proposed coming out of this. One is a working group around serving. So we have work group batch right now, and this will be work group serving for inference. Yeah, it is a little overloaded term. And then I think we want something around this resource model. So right now, DRA has been served out of work group batch, but we see from the conference that now we have a lot of like inference type use cases that don't necessarily that aren't necessarily served out of workgroup batch properly. So we sort of see that as being everybody kept asking me, where can I come to bring my use cases? Where can I come to bring my use cases? And batch wasn't really the right place because they're not doing batch workloads. So that's kind of where I'm going to propose another resource modeling or something type of working group that's just focused on kind of DRA and this high level resource model functionality. Yeah, that's kind of where what I'm thinking about. And then the other second one, I think Sergey and Clayton are working on putting together the serving. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. Happy to participate there. And I'm thinking like if you want to get something out beta by the end of the year, I hope we have those discussions sooner so we can land.
Exactly. We totally need to get something out by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, the urgency is like, the urgency felt at the conference from the users was like, we need this stuff a year ago, right? Like, so, which isn't really true, but because training workloads, device plugin works great for them, right? It's like, just grab the whole GPU and you're happy. It's really the inference stuff where we're going to start wanting to do it a little more. And then the other thing we have to think about in that working group that I haven't given almost any thought to at all is fragmentation. That was brought up by Eric Toon here, who you probably all remember in some of these discussions. So when you start mixing inference and batch, we're going to end up with fragmentation of these GPUs, and we have to think about how to address that.
So, any other people want to add it? Otherwise, I will talk about Matt. Are you around here? If Matt not here, I will talk about the other thing. So at also KubeCon, we actually many people expressed their interest to help us to contribute, right? But they also feel like there's the high bar to contribute to the SIG node. So I don't know. One of the things people eager try to say, oh, how they are going to send us the feedback, like that there's a new feature. And on the meeting, we are eager to ask people to share with it, because like a lot of like in place, for example, take one example, like the DRA and also the in place pod update. It's been years development, right? So people waiting for like the GA to try out, which is definitely is not slow down the process development, right? So we've been at the SIG Node deep dive, we call out, and many other events like the meet and the greeting, we ask people to contribute, not just contribute code, and also help us to validate and testing. So there's the people ask how they can contribute and send us the feedback loop. So we obviously suggest of the Slack, and we suggest like this SIG Node weekly meeting. We also, but also send an email to the SIG Node mailing list. So all those kind of things. People still think about it's not efficient. I just bring to the community here. It is maybe we need to put more effort. That's just share with everyone. And others, go ahead.
Sorry, so I've often like in commercial product development, we have product managers, and like they connect us in engineering with the customers. And I feel like in our open source communities, we as engineers tend to have to connect with the customers ourselves. At least I feel I don't know about how it is for you guys at other companies. I feel that struggle here. Like, I think that we might have to take it on ourselves to do either pull in some of our product managers if we can, which is always a struggle, because we might have to take it on ourselves to like actively seek out that feedback and advice. And like events like KubeCon are super helpful for that. But I'm wondering if there's other like, so at KubeCon, we connected up with some folks from like IBM Research who are using, they presented on DRA, they're actually using the DRA driver now. There's other folks like, and they want to get involved directly in SIG Node. But like, I think that, I don't know, I feel like it's the owner of the CAP, we might want to just kind of like, we put in there, oh, here's our use cases, but I don't know, we need to do something more active, I think, like take more responsibility in trying to get direct feedback.
Are we thinking of like maybe some surveys or something? Maybe we have a channel for DRA and then a link where people can respond how they are using it or the use cases they have, or I don't know whether that's gathering too much.
And do you think that
ultimately, I think it's a human process. I think it's literally calling people up or pinging them on Slack and having a conversation and a meeting with them. I don't think, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you think that part of a problem with DRA though is the requirement for devices have to have their own controllers? And it seems like I've only seen a few vendors having those controllers for people to really try it out. NVIDIA and Intel, I think. I know that's part of it. Isn't that one of the things of the structured method is trying to help there?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that if we can reduce the burden on the vendor, that helps. They'll still need a driver on Node because they have to interact with their device. But like one less piece to develop, I think will help. But yeah, definitely. I actually am curious about getting user input. Like, so there's vendors, right? In DRA in particular, there's like there's like at least 3 big groups of constituents. There's the device vendors, there's the Kubernetes vendors, and there's the end users, and like and which probably there's also cluster administrators, right? So there's like at least like a few different constituents. Like it's really good to try to get input from each of those. I'm curious, like, to make sure that I don't know, we're doing the right thing for the end user. I don't want it to be really painful for the end user to use, right? Like that's one of my concerns.
Yeah, I think the feedback, I think you probably heard that too, but I think from the folks at InstaSlice, right, they thought, oh, it's too much, too many manifests to create for the end users. Like, yeah, a lot of flexibility to get the devices, but as an end user, I could just say NVIDIA GPU 1, and now I have to create 4. So they added this UI, which is an admission hook that does it for them. So maybe that's another angle to think about. Like, is there a simpler UI to expose on top of DRA-like solution?
Right, right.
UI might be beyond our
Not UI, UX. Like,
UX definitely
like,
is
like
what we
right
are
now you have to
seeing, yeah.
create like
Yeah.
a resource claim, you have to create an NVIDIA claim parameter, and then that produces an intermediate object because of the way scheduler permissions work. Like, right, there's a lot of different objects to understand. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, I think maybe we can do. I'd love it to be just like a slight extension to our existing like resources in requests and limits in the pod spec, like as opposed to like a bunch of separate objects. I don't know how feasible that is. Like, there's lots of issues to resolve. There's reasons those things, those weren't just created for fun. Like, there's reasons those all exist.
Unfortunately, there are reasons for all of those, because
Yes.
so we were not able to extend initially those request and limit because it's plain structure. We were not able to introduce in core object just like like opaque fields. So that's why we got like intermediate object which needs to be created by the user to reference in the claim.
Right. Exactly. So there's good reasons for them. So I don't know if we'll be able to do better. But
It's just like limitations of our API machinery, how it's done.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I feel like, yeah, I understand, but I think maybe just something to explore if it can be simplified. I get it why it works the way it does.
I guess
Besides, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so one question I've always been wondering, with our node meetings are very heavily focused on West Coast, East Coast, and I know this is the tail end of Europe's workday. Was there a lot of people interested from Asia in these meetings? Like, have we considered, I don't even know if we have a chair or someone to lead a different type of meeting, but I know that's what SIG scheduling kind of would do.
At the earlier signal, the first 2 years, actually, we do have another meeting bi-weekly for the Asia. But the attendee actually is really, sometimes only me and Nantao was in the meeting and talk to each other. So this is why after 2 years, we canceled. I'm not sure how much demand on that one. Yeah, I do feel sorry, like Paco have to attend this meeting, sometimes even 1 a.m. But for him, but if Paco is the only one, I'm not sure we need to have another signal, right? So if we have more people want to, then we can think about have like the monthly or maybe bi-weekly switch sometime, like just want to share here. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think I was asking some people because I remember, I know I was working with someone that was interested in SIG Node, but he's in Australia. So it was like, he was like, I've never attended these meetings ever. But it is kind of a chicken and an egg situation also. But I don't know. I mean, I get it. I've tried to, getting new contributors to join meetings like this is always kind of challenging.
Yeah, and yeah, we try to keep that, at least myself and Nantao, only 2 of us try to keep that for 2 years. At the end, only like it's unpredictable. If we have like the higher demand and committed of contributor, we definitely can discuss this. Yeah, let me follow up with the scheduler, SIG scheduler, how they did this. But another thing that you want to say, the scheduler actually don't have much of the people attend from US time zone. They more have from Asia. That's my understanding. So they keep that one is even more alive. Yeah. It's just harder for keep both.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm. But I'm open to make this even earlier, so people at least not to pass the midnight. Depend on community, right? So people here, and I'm totally open to move this earlier. Yeah.
Sounds good. Right. Thanks for the recap, Don and John and Alex. Yeah. So I guess we should start talking about 131 then, maybe starting next week, start raising topics for what DRA is definitely a big priority, but what are the things we need to do?
What we actually need to do is like all the caps what we planned for previous milestones,
Yeah.
but were not approved. We need to start reviewing in one by one, so we will not end up to the next like deadline. We again with a pile of unreviewed
Yep.
caps.
Yep. I think Sergey and I will make a pass before the next meeting or something, and we'll have a list. I know a few of them missed, like the image pool secret one.
I was looking at the schedule. I'm thinking it's probably likely to be early to mid-June, cap freeze. So that sounds like a long time, but the reality is that once cap freezes, there's like barely any time to implement anything.
Right.
So you
Yep.
kind of have to figure out what you're going to do before that.
I would propose even like on every single SIG Node meeting to have at least like, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes allocated for this kind of discussions about the cap progress.
Should we do planning next time? Early planning, I guess.
Early planning plus like looking at what is in our backlog, which was like bouncing between the milestones regularly.
Yep. We can check what we missed and take it up. Yep.
You are not you are talking about all those caps, right? Not just the DIA, right?
No, I'm about the situation what we are like planning like 20 caps. In reality, only like 5 goes in, or got actually attention from reviewers and approvers. So we need to be like more continuously looking at them.
Yeah, exactly. The reason is we do it too close to the deadline, so we only have capacity for 4 or 5. That's why if we start early, hopefully we can get in more.
So I will suggest like for next one, let's have like something like the P0, P1. So then we, as a community, we choosing top 4 and 5 as the P0 and the rest treat as P1 instead. Then we have that discussing for the P0 every week. We allocate like the 5 to 10 minutes to talk about those top P0. Is that what you suggest here?
Yes.
Okay. The only things I just want to say that we don't have product manager to help you to make a decision on that one. So we are going to based on our own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we don't have program product managers and so on, but we have at least like people active in this community who have interest and enthusiasm to implement the things. So
yeah, I think probably
based on that,
talking to our own product managers and our own customers to some extent, but it's just it's not
Yeah, we all agree DRA is the top one, right? So we are feeling the pressures. So I think we already used to assign like priorities, right? So maybe we can also group them and sort them more actively, not just
Our priority summit is more like from the candidates and plus how much guarantee we have the commitment from the engineer review and the approval, right? Honestly, that's the cases. It's not really like the internal priority, like how urgent you want to deliver certain things. So, like for example, in the internal, when I make that is the high priority, I could just remove engineer from one project to this project because this is higher priority. But in open source, we are not do that all the time. Majority time we cannot do that. because people interested on certain is have their own reason, maybe their internal business reason. I think we all agree, right?
Yep.
So it's harder as the community. You say, okay, I think at the earlier time I did. At the early time, purely priority came from me. And I said, because user need this. But right now, every release, we have a lot of from a different vendor and from their own interest, right? So come up that they will argue with the priority. Why is urgent for them, right? So it's hard at the earlier time. If you go back to old one, like before 1.11, 1.13, basically priority set by me and Derek. Because that time we basically represent the generic users, not vendor interest only. So then after that, I think it's more like vendor, Kubernetes vendor, even like a DNS vendor, like obviously Alexandra, honestly, of course, for the Intel interest on the DRA, right? So I also interested in DRA, but that's kind of a thing. So it's a little bit harder to see this is the top.
We have many interests.
Yeah. I know many people have this interest. I just say DRA is easy to see, right? But the other, how you are going to say? So it's a little bit like, for example, there's the node declarative node maintenance. I can say for certain vendor is important. For cloud provider may not that important. But now I realize, I think for maybe the DRA in the long term also important. So I could justify, right? I could justify that's the high priority. This is why last couple of weeks, I just basically it's implicit to reset the priority. Because in the past, I was wonder why OpenShift didn't reset priority. I keep wonder, but nobody really reset until I realized I might need that one for the how to maintain for a group of the devices. So that's why I can implicit reset priority. But other things is hard to see. And a lot of features like the user handling, they want that one. Like for example, in place pod update, many users want that one. But if we are equally not to provide that one, user have to wait. So how we're going to justify that one? This kind of feature actually will be always being in, if you are trade off, you may be always trade off those features. It's in general benefit customer users, but not at this moment is a sharing project. Like at this moment, DIA is the sharing project.
Right.
Right. But it doesn't mean that other projects not important.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a hard problem, and I guess we can, as a community, try to figure out.
So this is why a lot of time later I realized this the cases, and I need the vendor compete with that resource, because vendor investor, like a Kubernetes vendor, device vendor investor, is me definitely have the priority to. So a little bit when, and then we fit into. And the community here, besides vendor invest the commit of the resource, engineering resource, we here commit a rest of obviously like technical data and obviously critical bug. So that's where I like that kind of going on for that. Just share with you. That's my short part.
So your thinking is like, okay, we as a community prioritize the tech debt, the bugs, and then if a particular feature is important to a vendor and their customers, then they'll bring people to work on that.
Yeah, that's basically last couple years. That's how we are kind of implicit doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess like Don, like are you proposing something we should be doing differently when we are planning, or just being more cognizant of like just not focus too much on one thing at the expense of others?
I agree with that. Let's try. I just want upfront to bring those kind of potential problem conflicts. So can we try? If next one we can agree about the top 4, 5 P0, everything's happy. But I just want to bring up that could be we couldn't agree about what's the top P0.
Yep. That's fair.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. See you next week. Bye now.